Good morning, everyone, and a big shout out and thank you to both Martin and Bruce for kind of covering some of the logistics this morning, and of course the technical requirements to make this happen. I've just had a little bit of a health setback this week. In the last couple of days, I've been really uh, been a little bit tricky. So I thought, well, I better record something just in case I can't show up on time. So here I am, and glad you're with us today. Uh, Clearly, we have begun together this journey that we call Lent. It's an amazing time that allows us a chance to kind of pause before we arrive at Easter morning. And today I want to kind of frame this experience and the power of the experience kind of connected to the story that you just heard read, the gospel story of Jesus, 40 days suffering, engaging with the Satan out in the wilderness, fasting in the wilderness, that 40-day journey that goes on and on and on for Jesus as he is probably reflecting on his own calling in the world, right? And at the very end of this sort of challenging period, there's this brief little note at the end of this cycle of the text that says, the angels came and ministered to him. In many ways, they just simply gave him the energy to go on, to move forward, to take the next step. Because this 40-day journey into the wilderness that Jesus takes in the text for today is but a beginning place. It allows him to get to this moment where he can begin kind of giving voice to God's kingdom in the public realm, right? He begins his public ministry after this period of time. 40 days. 40. It's a huge number in the biblical tradition. If you pause for a moment and try to think back all of the references to 40 days, you'll probably come up with some of the big basic ones, right? Do you remember them? See if you can conjure up a few of them in your own mind, right? Think about Noah and the flood. 40 days, 40 nights, waiting for the waters to subside and a new day to dawn. A reminder, too, that the end of that 40-day journey wasn't the end of the journey, but the beginning of something new. And that's what I want us to remember today. That this journey that we're on in Lent is not to arrive at Easter as if the job is done, but rather to arrive at Easter as if an invitation to begin the journey itself. And that's really the challenge in these texts. What other 40-day or 40-year stories do you remember from the Hebrew scriptures or our own New Testament scriptures as well? There were the spies that were sent into the promised land. They were there for 40 days, scoping out the promised land before the children of Israel might be able to come into it. Goliath, remember David and Goliath? Goliath beat up on the Israelites for 40 days before David was able to slay him, and begin his own kind of ascent to being the ruler. What's another one? Moses up on the top of the mountaintop. You know, they're having a rough time out in the wilderness. Moses goes to the mountaintop. He's got to wait 40 days, and then he receives the 10 Commandments, right? That's another one. Elijah, same way, 40 days to journey to the top of Mount Horeb. Let's see. You could shout them out, but I can't hear you because I'm talking to you from my bedroom. But Jonah and the whale, 40 days. Wilderness, obviously, 40 years. One that you might not remember is the moment from the resurrection to the ascension of Jesus in the New Testament text, 40 days as well. And even in other religions, Muhammad was in his 40th day before the angel Gabriel met up with him and disclosed to him that great revelation. Over and over again, that number, 40, is a significant number. And why is it significant? It's significant because in many ways, scholars who look at what it might actually mean, they all say it doesn't mean 40 days. it it doesn't act like that in the text. So 40 is a number that is a little bit like the number you give your kids when you're going on vacation and they're in the back seat, bored out of their minds, and they keep saying, are we there yet? How long is this going to take? When are we going to get there? All that complaining because it seems like it's taking a very, very long time to get where we're trying to go. That's what 40 days means. It means a very long time. It means umpteen, days. It's just like this just keeps going on and on and on and on. I mean, literally, as I'm struggling with this little health issue, I thought, this will clear up in a day, and I'm in day 3. I'm like, well, how long is this going to go on? 40 days? That's what it feels like. It's that extent of time. And I think what's important to remember for you and I is that there is no, according to the biblical narratives, there is always there's no quick way to the new world order. There is no silver bullet to arrive at a place that goes, that's taken care of, and that's behind us, now we can move on. It's a grueling and challenging journey that all of us face to release ourselves from one way of thinking or one way of experiencing world and allowing that to fade away and kind of dissipate, and then for a new opportunity to show up on the horizon. And in every one of those 40-day stories or even 40-year stories, the bulk of the time, right, the majority of the experience is the kind of slugfest of the 40 days. That's where it all happens. We always think, let's celebrate, the transition moments, Easter or whatever it happens to be. But that's not the reality. The reality is that your everyday experience of life, the day-to-day grind, the waiting, the struggle, the anticipation, the management of crisis or pain or sorrow, anticipation, all your time in the back seat waiting to get there is really what it's all about. Is really where, almost like if you think about this season, God, if you want to think of it that way, God is working the depths of the soil below the surface, right? That's where the deep work happens. And the deep work doesn't end at a resolution. That's the other piece to remember here. The deep work ends at invitation, right? So if you look at the story of Jesus tempted in the wilderness, you know that it is a journey that's not a journey into an end result, but it's a journey into an invitation into new frontier or new territory. And I think for us as people of God who have, even partnered with this congregation for so many years, right? We can see that we're not arriving at a destination, but really this long journey is, for us too, a way to reimagine our future together and what the tomorrows might be like. It's not like we're going to arrive somewhere and land there and go, this is it, we can finally put our feet up. Ask any council president for the last 30 years that I've been here, have we ever arrived at a place where we could put our feet up and say, we made it? Nope. Every ending is like this new beginning place. And I think it's just, especially during Lent, right? It's just important for us to remember that does a couple things. One, it brings value to the struggle. That the struggle or the challenge areas in our life, the times when we feel tempted or confused or lost or wandering or in the belly of the whale or trying to fight a giant, think about all the stories that are 40-day stories, right? All of those stories the time in that space is important time. That's the bulk of the stories themselves, right? The stories aren't just the let's get to the end. It's about slogging your way through the thick of it. And there's something beautiful about that process. There's something beautiful about the process you're in, no matter what you're in the thick of. And that's something to pay attention to as you begin this Lenten journey this season. And then finally, this idea of where does this lead? I think in so many ways throughout the all the biblical stories, even after resurrection to ascension, right? There is never a place where the story ends. There's no end to the story ever. All there is another door that begins to open. And then people who have been on the long journey have to decide where to go from there. It's almost as if Easter morning, when the stone is rolled away, it's not as if that finishes the narrative, but rather it simply asks you, are you willing to journey in a new way beyond this experience? Are you willing to exit this place that sees the end to so much that has been a part of Jesus' life and ministries and the struggles that he's been through? Are you willing to take the next steps into the next day, the new day that is in front of you? It's always an invitation into tomorrow. It's never a destination to arrive at. I don't know about you, but sometimes I would think it would be simpler if we could just all figure out what the destination is and all kind of get there, maybe even get there together. But I don't read any of these stories that tell me that that's the way it works. It doesn't work for Jesus. It doesn't work for David and Goliath. It doesn't work for Jonah in the belly of the whale. It doesn't work for the children of Israel wandering around the wilderness for 40 years. It doesn't work for Noah in the flood. It doesn't work for the spies who are trying to figure out what this new kingdom might look like. There is no story that has an ending place. Every story has another beginning place. So for you this day, as you reflect on your own Lenten journey, imagine that you can almost picture yourself inside the weight of whatever 40-day experience you're having, and knowing that it won't end, but rather it will invite you into another iteration of your experience of life, another layer or moment where you can give full expression to who you are, or your faith, or your experience of what God's love is for you and for others. It's always an invitation to another tomorrow. And let that journey and the cycle of that journey be the thing that continues to nurture you in your long journey of faith. Amen. Okay, all. Thanks for allowing me the chance to be with you digitally today, of course. And I hope I'll be back next week in person. All right. Blessings.